The question I received today was, why does it take so long to find the one right person in your life to trust and love? We're going to start reading from Genesis 2:18. Genesis 2:18 says, "And the Lord God said, It's not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." Verse 18, it says, a helper comparable to him, which is singular, a helper. Verse 19, "Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name." Verse 20, "So Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam was not found a helper comparable to him." Look at the end of verse 20. "But for Adam there was not a helper comparable to him." Notice that singular English right there. It says a helper. It doesn't say any helpers. It says a helper, meaning one. Verse 21, "And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up his flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman. And he brought her to the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore," verse 24, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." Let's look at the verse 24. It says, "A man," which is one, "shall leave his father and mother to be joined with his wife," which means one. One man, one wife. "And they shall become one flesh." There we go, one again. Okay, the reason it's so hard to find that one true love is because there's only really one person out there for you in this world of 100 billion people. Okay, there's only one for you. You know, we're just gonna go over a quick lesson on dating and dating principles. You know, I want to start off with this example. You know, think of your life as a tube of toothpaste. You know, hopefully we all brush our teeth in the morning. We squeeze out that toothpaste. Okay, now let's use the tube of toothpaste is our life. Okay, and let's say we meet a girl, maybe our freshman year. You know, kiss, all this other stuff. You know, we squeeze a little bit out the tube because we gave a little bit of our heart to that girl. So we're squeezing our tube out because we're giving our heart and our life to this girl, and you break up. So that takes some more out of your toothpaste tube, and then maybe you find another girl your sophomore year, maybe either later on in your freshman year, and you squeeze some more of that toothpaste out of that tube of toothpaste, and you're just giving your life to this girl now. You know, hugs, kisses, all this other good stuff, and you keep. You know, that cycle keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. Your senior year, you know, you realize, man, I done squeezed out all this tube in this tube of toothpaste, and now I have no more toothpaste in this tube. Same with our life. You know, we get all emotional over this freshman girlfriend, the sophomore girlfriend, whatever it is, you know, and then in the end we actually find that one true love, where really all we have to offer is a empty tube of toothpaste, because we done gave our life to so many people. You know, I want to start off in Corinthians when we're talking about dating principles. Corinthians was written by Paul to the Corinthian church because it had a lot of corrupt stuff going on. You can study that more. I'm not going to get into it, but I think it's best we start off in Corinthians chapter 13. It talks specifically about love being the greatest gift, and it'll probably help with the situation that you're going through. 1 Corinthians 13:4 says, "Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up." Verse 5, "Does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth. Bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, and that which is part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, love, these three things, but the greatest of these is love. Okay? You know, that was a great example of love. It tells you what characteristics love has. Love is all of these things that's described in Corinthians chapter 13. If it doesn't meet these standards, then it's not love. We're going to look at, when we talk about, I noticed you put trust in there, we're going to look at trust in a second, but when we're thinking about trust, I want us to think, nowhere in the Bible does it say trust in man in all your heart, but it does say trust in God in all your heart. The reason it doesn't say trust in man with all your heart is because you look in the Bible, it says man is wicked, man is corrupt. No matter who you find, no matter where you go, no matter who your friend is, no matter who your parents are, no matter who your pastor, your counselor, teacher, they're all people, they're all men. We're wicked and corrupt. We're going to let you down. We might not mean to, but we're man, we're not perfect. God is perfect, okay? That's why you can put your trust in God, because He's perfect. But when you put your trust in man, it doesn't always end up so great, because man isn't perfect. They're going to let you down. That's just the fact of life. Man's not perfect. He's going to let you down. Now let's look at, verse 13 from chapter 13 in Corinthians. We have, I've been told, I was talking to some people, and, this girl was like, man, I've been hurt so many times. I'm just going to put this wall up. I'm not going to let anybody get in. I'm not going to be hurt again. It's just too much pain to deal with. It's a lot easier just to put up that wall and just try to wait for that perfect person, but I'm going to keep that wall up so nobody can get to me. Okay, when you put that wall up, when you're guarding your heart, as people say, you're really going to miss out on true intimacy and love. Because verse 13 of chapter 13 in Corinthians says, and now abide faith, hope, love, these three things, but the greatest of these is love. Now let's talk about faith, hope, real quick. When we look at faith, faith is the foundation and the content of God's message. Hope is the attitude and focus, and love is, of course, the action. Now, you can't have love without having faith and hope, okay? When you search the definition of faith, faith is just the belief in something. When you search the definition of hope, hope is the feeling of something, and love is, of course, what we talked about in Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 13. Okay, now let's look. In order to find true love, you have to have faith and hope. You have to have the faith. You have to believe. You have to have the hope, which is the feeling. You have to believe and have that feeling to find love. And when people put that guard up or that wall up, man, nobody's going to hurt me. You miss out on that faith and hope, so therefore you can't find love. Alright, now that we hit that, let's talk about not everybody's going to have a helper, okay? It talks about that in 1 Corinthians 7 through 8. And Paul was talking, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 is instructions on Christian marriages. But we're going to look at chapter 7 and continuing. Verse 7 of chapter 7 in Corinthians says, for I wish that all men were even as myself, but each one has his own gift from God, one in this matter and another in that. But I say to, this is verse 8, but I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am, but if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Let's just talk about this verse for a second. Now we notice Paul says, I wish that all men were as I am. At first when I read that I thought, maybe Paul's talking about, man, I'm such a good prophet, or, I'm such a good Christian that people should be like me. But as I studied it more, Paul was single. He wasn't married, and he's talking to us here saying, I wish that all men were as I am. Paul was single. In order to accomplish God's full will for Paul, Paul had to be single. He didn't have the burden of having to take care of his wife, the daily stress or of a family. In order to accomplish God's full will, he had to remain single, and he fully devoted his life to Christ because he didn't have that family. Now for others, it might be better that you marry because maybe, you can have a wife that builds you up, and y'all can build other people up as a team, and maybe you have children that you raise up to build other people up. So Paul tells us here that, there's a good gift, both, whether you're unmarried is not a bad thing or married is not a bad thing. He's saying, I wish, people were like me, single. Okay, that's telling us that there's a good gift of being single. fully devote your life to Christ. And he's also telling us later on that being married can be a good gift. You know, build each other as a team. Your wife builds you up, you can build your wife up, build your children up. You know, but maybe you're destined to marry somebody so you can build other people up. And let's read on verse 8. But I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Verse 8 and 9 says, but if I cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. And excuse me, that was verse 9. What that's meaning is, instead of committing as lust or adultery, really, in all honesty, it's better to go ahead and marry. That's a whole new subject for another day. But you can read chapter 7 in the book of Corinthians, and that gives you great instructions on a Christian marriage. And honestly, you know, since it was anonymous, I don't know how old you are, but to be honest, something that I struggled with my freshman, sophomore, junior, some even my senior year this year, you know, is wanting to have a relationship, okay? Just because you desire a relationship now doesn't mean that you should have a relationship. Maybe, you know, you're probably not going to meet that one person for you in high school. You might have to get out in the world and find that person or something like that. So don't overly stress a relationship in high school. And I think you should be good. I'll be praying over your situation, and that's pretty much all I have. Hope this helped.